Hello and welcome. Here we are again, Tuesday noon, my time. And hello, Marianne, for your evening country.
Hello, Karina.
And last week we decided to talk about the movie Kiss the Ground
Yeah.
today. And Kiss the Ground is available on Netflix, so it's easy to get to. And we haven't found any problems. Sometimes a movie that's available in the US is not necessarily available in Europe, but Marianne had access to it too, so
Yes, this
it's
one is. Yeah.
is not a problem. And I would like to start because one of the very first sentences they said is erosion happens when soil becomes dirt. And there is so much information in that. Do you
Yes.
want to talk a little bit about it, and then I may fill in whatever else I got? Let's do it that way.
Yeah, interesting. I can start for sure because that sentence only, it brought me everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
To start with, it was like, soil, dirt, as what is he really saying there? And it required for me to really go into the energy of what he was bringing
Mm-hmm.
beyond the words, as though soil has an aliveness, has a lightness, where the dirt is heavy, compact, and that.
Yeah.
So I'm going with that soil is really alive. And when it becomes dirt, it's, yeah, that like
It died.
nothing there. Yeah.
It
So
died.
how is that for you? What did you get out of that?
That was my initial main thing. But what I also got out of it is we how much are we not looking at the fact that soil is alive and dirt is dead? I mean, why is it that we have to do A, killing weeds, but B, also fertilize incredibly? And and nitrogen is one of the main fertilizers. I mean, that's what makes your lawn green, you know. And it became possible after World War II with, some of the chemical warfare that was done during World War II that had both positive as well as negative impact on the world. And just looking at the fact, I mean, 1960 is quite a bit after the end of the World War, but we had basically for a bushel of grain, we used 6 units of nitrogen. Today, we're using 20 units. Why do we need so much more? And for me, the clear answer is this is because we have changed the soil into dirt.
Yeah. And do you know what came also while listening to you is how much more women there are who goes with fertilization, in vitro fertilization, or another way to become pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And that jumped so really like, wow, it is because in the film or the documentary, he's mentioning also about when our health is, yeah, when we are sick, other way around, the earth is also sick. But with this one, We need more. At the same time, we kill more. So the killing of the soil becoming dirt is also seen in the human bodies. Because what we put in our mouths isn't dead alive any longer. We put in also that food. So we kill our bodies also.
That is true. And I mean, in that instance, I need to bring in Dr. Zach Bush because he talks about the consequences of the spraying and
Mm,
GMO, creating GMO
yeah.
crops, that the fertility rate in not just women, but also men
Yeah.
has incredibly declined,
Yeah.
almost to about a third less than what it used to be.
And what's coming in now, could it be that it is not only from the aspect we are speaking about, but also a natural force to balance out the overpopulation?
Uh, that's my way. I'm not looking so much, oh God, we're, reducing fertility in both men and women, but we need less population in order. I
Mm,
mean, that's what David Attenborough, who we talked last week about. What he's saying is we need to reduce the population on the earth, and that can be done with removing poverty.
yeah.
But it's really it is an interesting thing that, and how much does the earth contribute to what is needed for the earth to live.
Yeah. And that brings me also, Karina, with the subject or by the subject of cooperating with the
Mm-hmm.
earth.
Yep.
As though, as we go in from the side of nature and balancing out the population also, what harm do we not only to our bodies, but also to the earth when we force it into having all those babies? Because yeah, I'm longing to have the babies. It's part of this reality. It's the natural way of going and birthing, growing up, marrying, having children, etc., etc. But is there a question in that, as though what can we ask? What
Yeah.
is required? Yeah.
And
Mm.
how much is uh, the statement we need 2.1 children in order to stay economically viable? How much is that a lie
Yeah.
that can be changed if we tweak some of the numbers or correlations or whatever in the system that is currently in place?
And isn't that coming from all the definitions and the structures and
Yeah.
the calculations? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is it also seen from there when we speak about population, when David Attenborough speaks, when Bush, no, the other one, his name escapes me.
Clinton, Obama.
No, 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 no. The one you mentioned here. Um, oh,
Oh, Jack Bush.
Zach Bush. That's the one I was looking
Okay.
for.
I
Thank
was
you.
thinking about President Bush, but yeah.
Yeah, who knows what he is interfering here? But are they speaking also in a kind of way of? definitions and calculations, or are they really speaking from talking to the earth, talking to nature, cooperate with? That's also a question.
That definitely is a question, yeah. And I wouldn't want to give an answer to that if they are
No.
actually talking to the earth or coming um, from their conclusions that are also based, on the other hand, on a willingness to think outside the box,
Yeah,
which is already a total shift in the way of being and also caring. I mean, I know Zach Bush comes from a very scientific perspective, and at the same time, he deeply cares about the earth.
yeah. Because wasn't it by being for a longer period in the more poor lands and being there present with his scientific way of looking to bodies that there changed something in his world
In
by
his, yes,
observing and
yeah,
caring
yeah,
also that's the energy for me Zach Bush has a lot is the caring
yeah,
for earth. Yeah,
yeah, definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
But it's also, you know, one thing is, if I look at the status of the world today, where we have poor soil, we actually also have poor people, poor populations. And poor populations tend to create social breakdown, social unrest. Um, I'm not necessarily going all the way that yes, it'll be war, but it definitely is social unrest. And about 40 million people are pushed off their land per year. What does that create? And then if I look back in history, when we had colder weather and, you know, glaciers were moving forward, that people got displaced due to cold weather, which also doesn't allow them to cultivate and grow food. But that led ultimately to the downfall of the Roman Empire because they were just overrun
Yeah.
with people that are basically were climate refugees. And with climate, I'm not talking about, oh, the climate change. And yet, what is warming contributing to the desertification of the land?
Sometimes all those things, and it's is it confusing? Not sure, because confusing is when we don't have all the information
Yeah.
to become more clear on it. But there are things happening as though they speak a lot of climate change, heating up the earth, as though the temperature is going up, and at the same time we pass periods colder than before, or not colder than before perhaps, but many years ago, as though I can remember from my childhood, really, when I was 4 or 5 years somehow, that the winters in Europe were really cold, cold winters and
We don't
warm
have them
summers.
anymore.
And that we don't have them anymore. And the temperature is as though now in this period we are in the spring, but still the spring in here, at least in Portugal, does not have the temperatures that it normally does have.
Mm.
A lot less sun is shining, a lot more rain. So there are really shifts, and then as a sudden, it goes into, as it was before, up till June, for example, that the temperatures are lower, more rain, and then as a sudden, the
It's
summer is there, but then the temperatures are really peaking up really high.
mm-hmm.
And then that summer is now lasting October, and
Oh,
then it turns. So we see here the shift of seasons by the months they appear.
but that is doesn't surprise me. Doesn't
Me
surprise me at
neither.
all. I mean, how much have we decided? Okay, these months are winter, these months are spring, these months are summer and fall. But where is there any allowance for flexibility?
Yeah,
And has the Earth climate always been the same?
never,
Not at all.
never. Yeah,
You
it
know?
is.
And so that's why I am not surprised. It's just for the Earth and everything that is going on, I mean, you can go scientific and say, oh, it's the axis to the sun and it's this and that and rotational speed and that. But change is normal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And isn't it from that aspect, because not being an allowance of the flexibility, that they pull on all the definitions about climate change?
To some extent, that is correct. On the other hand, um, we do have more CO2 in the atmosphere.
Yeah,
We do have more bare soil because at some point we decided that farming is happening in this way, that you till and have the bare soil and then you have the crop slowly grow and it gets covered and then you harvest and you have bare soil. And the one thing that, if you compare a temperature of a patch of bare soil with a patch of land that has cover on it, doesn't matter what it is colder in the morning and the temperature is way higher
yeah,
than the other patch if you have bare soil. So how much is that alone contributing to a climate change?
yeah. And it's and as we see the pesticides peaked enormously, going with um, yeah, the limitation of the definition of what, when, where, and how. So
Mhm.
it's and that makes that it looks like there is something really wrong in nature, while it is the flexibility of nature which we aren't in allowance of.
And how much is there a con? See, when we started talking about climate change, and that was really like 30, 40 years ago, we already started talking about that the climate is changing. And for me, what really was obvious that yes, human activity is contributing to the change of climate.
Yeah,
And human desire for control, that things have to be the same, there cannot be any change, is also contributing because as a sudden we are interpreting things in a different way.
yeah. And
Well,
if you go there also with the GMOs and Monsanto, who are the seeds are manipulated, are
mhm.
artificial alterated. So it is different from the start, but when you go with the expectations and the projections of what always was from nature, then we create something that isn't matching
That is
in and
unnatural.
with, yeah, it
Yeah.
is, it is. And what catches me every day again now lately, Karina, is that with that cooperation of earth, the separation of our bodies, the separation with earth, it looks like it's so difficult, quote unquote, to cooperate, while becoming more clear that but it's insane because our bodies coming from the earth, the elements of earth
Mhm.
are made of, our bodies are made of. So we are, whether we are with it, be present with it or not, but we are already connected to the earth. We are already in communion with the earth, but we are doing so much effort
We're
to
fighting it.
keep us separated, to not cooperate. Yeah.
And how far is that really? There are so many places where humanity or humankind is looked at as the crown of creation, as the um, subjugate the earth. How much are we attempting to subjugate the earth, to control it, to make it in the way that we decide is the right way, because that is what we've had for the last 100 years, and therefore it is the right way. Not even looking at that maybe we are only stewards, meaning caretakers,
Hmm.
not subjugating the earth.
Yeah.
And how much would that change?
Everything.
And how much I how much are we talking about things without being willing to do what is necessary? We talk about things, we come to conclusion that this and that is necessary from the current level of consciousness.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love Albert Einstein's quote that you cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it.
Yeah.
Because if you do attempt to do that, you will take the problem and move it from here to there. Because by solving the problem, you create another problem. If it's from a different level of consciousness, you can actually ask the necessary question, solve the problem without creating a new problem.
Yeah. And isn't it the time we are in now, as we see in the
Yeah,
past, solving problems, but from the same consciousness, from the same
yeah,
place
yeah.
of limitation also. And that is required now that we step up in consciousness.
Yeah, that we need to become more conscious. And how much, on the other hand, are people, and I'm not talking even about all people, on earth, but even just percentage wise, how much are people willing to be more conscious? And conscious is more than just being awake.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good question because what I see often happen is they speak about willing become more conscious, but then going in and receiving what is required to live more conscious, then often they say, oh no, that's not what I'm choosing. That's not what I'm willing to do, be, act on, or whatever. Because it looks like it's so strange that in truth, it's more natural of our knowing than ever before. Isn't it time? Because we speak about we are infinite energy. So we are conscious. We are it already. We are not living it. We are not embodying it, but we are it. And that's also the fight we are going
Mhm.
against to avoid it, to put it aside. So, what is required and the actings we can choose now isn't one of them allow ourselves to know truly what we know?
That would be one thing. And what if we also become aware of the fact that diversity is needed? That it's not
Absolutely.
one size fits all. Oh, we need to do this to solve the problem of, let's say, climate change. That
Yeah,
solves the problem. There are so many possibilities. And what if the one person says, oh, I'm really interested in this. This suits me. Another person has something totally different that suits them, yet both of them, because they're willing to change what they're doing right now, are contributing to solving a
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
It's that, the earth, nature thrives when there is biodiversity. And what if humankind would thrive with diversity? That it's
And
not one size fits all, one race, one way of being in the world that is the right and the correct way.
yeah,
No, there is so many different possibilities. And what if we are in allowance of those?
that's Karina. And it's really time to live again from that diversity as though it is created now in this reality to go all in the same direction, all with the same rules, all with the same whatever it is. Diversity isn't allowed. And even now, it is changing, but it was really like when you chose to live and be the different or in a different way being present, then it was like you are insane, you are not normal, you are this, you are that. While yeah, it's time to acknowledge the diversity that is
And
the life on
but
earth.
if I look at it, for instance, right now, and I'm aware that it is connected to China being seen as the culprit for COVID-19. But people have no idea, and I'm just looking at myself. I wouldn't know how to differentiate somebody from Japan, from China, and from Korea, just to name three countries.
Yeah,
And how much are we having right now a an assault on Asian people, because that's all China. Everybody Asian is China.
yeah.
And what does that bring? It's really
Conflict.
there. No, there is even a deeper, a different reason for it is how much. And I remember my parents talking about it. I just recently here in the US, the conversation was about it, how my culture gets destroyed by those foreigners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have we, and that intermingling didn't happen when we were so few people and so much of the earth was undiscovered country. Now that the earth has become a village where we all know each other on some level,
Yeah.
are we willing to say, yeah, you can practice your culture as long as I can practice my culture?
And Karina, culture didn't that, or isn't that raised because the distance of groups of people who were living together as in the countries, and we
Mhm.
had little contact with each other. So now there is the diversity of people and the diversity of cultures is more seen, but at the same time sticking with my culture is the right culture, my culture is the best culture, and those started to fight against one or another, as though when we are really allowing ourselves and be willing to live as one, then culture isn't required as in the definition, form, and structure we know it
Yeah,
nowadays. Yeah.
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 And, it's, we, I am absolutely fascinated by the fact that how Earth is actually inviting us in a relatively strong way, maybe, of becoming more conscious.
Mm, yeah.
Because otherwise, we're going to face, or at least a part of humanity is going to face extinction. Those that are not able to loosen up their definitions and become in allowance, get into allowance of other cultures, of other races, of other, they will die out
Yeah. Yeah.
because they will kill each other off. And on
Which
the other,
already is happening.
which is already happening. Yes, I agree. And isn't that ultimately also how evolution has been going on ever since the
Um,
first living entities, be it even one cell, living entities that uh, were on Earth?
yeah. Yeah, and all from, isn't it all from the point of view of the separation? As though I separate me, that somehow that's what I'm getting, because you mentioned the first form of living on Earth, even though we couldn't speak about human bodies, but it was still certain amount of molecules who
Yeah.
pulled them together in a more solid form. And is that what we never got up till now? That is the separation, when something changes of form, while when several molecules
Mm,
coming more together,
I
that
don't
is the
think
separation.
I don't think molecules, even groups of molecules, would be separating from the Earth. That requires a uniquely human uh, capacity of thinking.
That's what I mentioned. What I wanted to say, that it is from there that we mentally
Yeah,
see it as
I mean,
separation.
we've all bought the lie that we are separate from nature
Yeah, yeah,
because we
it
cannot
is.
be like animals. I mean, even just the sentence, I'm not like the animals, is already the statement of separation.
Yeah,
The
so
animals are in communion. They live with the earth. They are willing to be aware of drought or floods coming and responding appropriately.
yeah, and that the energy of that communion,
Yeah.
that sticks out as the that's what we humans avoid to be, that communion, knowing that we are already in communion from the elements of what we exist out.
Yeah, but that's the difference between mental and energetically.
Yeah,
Mentally, we are in separation. We enjoy the separation because I'm a different physical body than you are. We cannot be one.
yeah,
That is impossible. Energetically, yes, we can perceive each other. We can perceive what's going on for the other. And it's really that choice of beings. You know, we were told I'm not the animal because I'm superior than an animal. I mean, there's that one aspect already. And then believing that I am separate from nature, believing, buying into the fact that we are told over and over and over again that nature is the enemy, nature is dangerous. I mean,
yeah,
just look at the writings, at news, at, just look around you. How much are you having that?
yeah. And you mentioned also an energy perceiving, which is different of seeing.
Yeah.
As though with the physical eyes, we see the difference, we see different forms. And though the physical eyes goes also with the mental definitions. So there it is separated. But when we go in the perceiving, then the separation isn't existing.
No, we're perceiving the joy or the sadness
Yeah,
that is in another person. And it is totally besides the point what the skin color is like
yeah,
or
sure.
what the culture is like.
Yeah,
So it's really that the are we willing to step beyond all those limitations? And my sense is the earth is inviting us, the earth is asking us, and sometimes asking us forcefully with a 2x4 or 4x8
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah, 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 yeah.
in the form of so-called natural disasters.
And for me also, it's not only the earth who's asking us, but also our bodies, which go in
Yeah,
communion with that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It is time to step up. It is time to be willing
To
to
look
live more conscious and to look.
to look at and I mean look not just from a physical perspective with
Yeah,
looking with my eyes, but also perceiving energetically to look for a different way of being in the world and with the world.
yeah,
It's not just this being in the world. There, if you really feel into that, there is already a separation included.
yeah. So true. So true. And how much more can you if you even use the word see, how much more can you see with your eyes closed than with
Yeah,
your eyes open? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it is. And
And
it is happening. It is happening.
it is happening. And how much are we also willing to acknowledge the the amount of collaboration that nature is doing? Like, just it may sound for some people as a silly example, but for me, it's a very potent example. I have aspen, and I don't know what the other tree is that I have in the backyard, but the aspen have had leaves for at least 2 weeks. And the other tree, there was nothing visible. And I was just starting to look and said, "Tree, are you okay? What is going on?" And after I asked that the next day, I could see the tree leaving out. Now there is stuff visible all around,
Yeah.
but
And
how much
isn't that
more
beautiful?
the willingness to, "Oh no, I'm okay, don't worry,"
Yeah.
to
That,
that that oneness in a way that you're talking about. How much is that there, and how much are we not willing to acknowledge that?
that Karina, that for me is really also up in my world, like really acknowledging what already exists, as though that tree is so willing to let you know, I'm fine, I'm okay. You see, here are my leaves.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that conversation, that connection, that communion with earth we have
yeah,
from nature, it is happening so much more than we are willing to acknowledge for sure.
yeah.
So yeah, are we willing? I'm willing.
Me too. And I guess that is why we have those conversations.
So yeah,
To
let this be
invite
an
to invite
invitation.
others to it.
Let this be the invitation for
Yeah,
all the ones who will see this later or are present now here to, are you willing to acknowledge even more?
yeah.
Even more. Yeah. Oh, nice. I'm curious what we will speak about next week.
Yeah, what, one more week of, are we going with one more week of movie conversation? Uh,
Perhaps we have a lot of bullet points of this film. Still, we can
oh,
go with next week.
I have ideas about other movies even.
Other
That's
movies. I'm curious.
a contribution to the base level of the conversation. What change is required?
Yeah,
You know, how much am I willing to step up? How much am I willing to be there, to be present with? How much have I given up? How much, all of those things are sort of like like a thread through the
yeah,
three movies that we talked about right now.
yeah.
And I have an idea for another one. That. So let's talk about it, and then and maybe we'll announce things.
Yes,
But
I'm open for everything, Karina. Everything is interesting to have a chat about
yeah,
and to talk about. It is really.
yeah,
Okay,
right.
so
Okay.
then we see each other next week, same time, same
Same
place.
time, same place, and have a great week. Take care.
Take care.